The Galactic Council chamber flickered with a dozen streams of holographic chaos. Fires blooming across Earth cities, a Zarkari dreadnought spiraling out of control, and bizarrely, a human in a chicken costume hijacking a military broadcast. Ambassador Vrek, a 12-foot arthropod from the planet Tharn, let out a strangled screech. They were supposed to surrender. No one answered. All eyes were on Earth. 6 weeks earlier, the sky over Nevada shimmered purple as the first Zarkari scout ship breached the stratosphere. It hummed like a cathedral organ, serene and terrible. Captain Reina Vasquez adjusted her earpiece. Eyes narrowed. She stood at the edge of a makeshift command center, a defunct missile silo turned UN defense hub. The desert wind kicked sand against the reinforced blast doors. "Status?" she asked, voice clipped. "They're broadcasting something," replied Dr. Miles Chun, hunched over a pile of wires and blinking consoles. "A demand for planetary surrender. Or possibly a cooking tutorial. Their syntax is a mess." Reina folded her arms. "And our satellites?" "Fried. Power grids flickering like a bad disco." Boombox Joe Callahan snorted from the corner, half buried under a heap of wires and homemade explosives. "Bad disco's still better than what they're bringing." "Focus," Reina snapped. Zara Khan, leaning against a wall in paint-stained jeans, added, "They're landing near Los Angeles," which is rude. No one lands in L.A. without a script and a dream. Miles chuckled under his breath, but Reina didn't smile. They picked the most visible city to make a point. Zara tilted her head. "Then let's make one louder." Hours later, the first alien attachment set foot in a scrapyard on the edge of L.A. Gleaming armor, plasma rifles, military perfection. They were expecting chaos. They got art. Sculptures made from twisted metal loomed like abstract gods. Painted symbols on the ground glowed with improvised UV lights. The aliens paused, calculating uncertain. Then the trap sprung. Magnetized scrap pulled at their armor, throwing off their balance. Drones, small, clumsy, and carrying homemade EMPs, buzzed overhead. A flamethrower disguised as a lawn ornament erupted in blue fire. From a rooftop, Zara cackled. "They don't get symbolism." Boombox Joe, firing a repurposed leaf blower that now hurled ball bearings at hypersonic speed, shouted, "This one's for Area 51, you pointy bastards." Miles coordinated from a nearby van, feeding data into a hacked Zarkari scanner. "Reina, they're trying to call for backup. I can jam them for another 60 seconds. Reina, moving like a ghost through the chaos, disabled a comms unit with precise rifle shot. "Make it count." The aliens fell, disarmed and bewildered, to a force they couldn't quantify. Later, as the desert cooled, the team regrouped in the command center. Joe flopped into a chair. "That was fun." "It was insane," Reina corrected. "And sloppy, but effective." "We just beat interstellar soldiers," Miles said, blinking as if the truth had only now landed. Zara leaned on the table, smearing ash across an old map. "They don't understand unpredictability. They plan for logic, not us." Joe grinned. "We're a walking contradiction, baby." Reina paced. "This was a scout team. The real fleet's coming. And they'll adapt. We have days, maybe less." "So what's the plan?" Zara asked. Reina stopped pacing. "We adapt faster." Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council, panic simmered. They were supposed to collapse. Vrek cried, "They've barely left their orbit." "They fed corrupted data into Zarkari navigational AI," said the Ellerin representative. "Its crystalline form pulsing." The flagship flew into a mountain, trying to parse the phrase cringe but valid. A hush fell. Finally, the elder of the council, an ancient being of dark matter and quiet fury, spoke. "Perhaps we underestimated them." The Zarkari fleet arrived in full force 3 days later. Dozens of warships hovered in low orbit, casting shadows across cities, oceans, and continents. To them, Earth was still a minor obstacle. Their mistake wasn't in underestimating human technology. It was underestimating humans. In the ruins of an abandoned Amazon fulfillment center outside Chicago, Reina Vasquez watched her makeshift command screen. A wall of jury-rigged monitors and hand-drawn charts taped together with stubborn hope and duct tape. Reports flowed in. Rio de Janeiro held the line using hang gliders and laser pointers. Nairobi's hackers turned Zarkari drones against their masters. Manila coordinated traffic to gridlock an entire invasion column. Chaos everywhere. And somehow, it was working. She turned to her team. Status. Miles Chun, working at 3 different terminals simultaneously. Didn't look up. Good news. I got the Zarkari armor systems to accept a firmware patch. Raina raised a brow. How? I told them I was their dad. In binary. Joe, sitting upside down in a chair and eating powdered donut rations, gave a greasy thumbs up. Classic. And the bad news? Raina asked. Miles gestured to a nearby table, where a piece of repurposed alien tech was emitting a low, angry whine. That's either a reactor or a coffee machine. We'll know in about 5 minutes. Zara Khan was painting a massive mural across one of the hangar walls. A lion in a spacesuit, biting a Zarkari battleship in half. Can we please make this a UNESCO site when we survive? She said, not looking up. We won't survive if we don't synchronize our countermeasures, Raina snapped. Every minute we stall, they learn. Zara turned, expression earnest beneath paint-smeared cheeks. And every minute we fight back, we teach. We're not just resisting, we're rewriting the rules. Joe nodded, and blowing them up. Strategically, Raina corrected. On the streets of Prague, a Zarkari patrol encountered resistance that made no tactical sense. Humans in banana suits tossing firecrackers, an inflatable tank decoy covered in Christmas lights, and loudspeakers blasting Gregorian chants remixed with EDM. The aliens hesitated. Then, the street cracked open beneath them as hidden explosives buried under sewer lids detonated. Above, on a nearby rooftop, Boombox Joe shouted into a megaphone, "Welcome to Earth, dumbass." Back at HQ, Raina and Zara reviewed global ops. Dots on the map flickered between red and green, some blinking erratically. We're not just winning, Zara whispered, amazed. We're confusing them to death. They can't parse irony, Miles said, or sarcasm, or pop culture references. Their AI keeps freezing whenever someone says this is fine, while on fire. Raina rubbed her temples. We're weaponizing cognitive dissonance. Joe appeared beside her, holding a plate of nachos he'd somehow acquired. You say that like it's a bad thing. Then came the alert. A Zarkari command vessel was descending over Kyoto, escorted by drone swarms. This was different, targeted, precise, an attempt to reclaim initiative. Raina stood. Deploy Operation Foxhole. Zara's eyes lit up. We're doing the decoy gardens? Everything we've got. All teams. The scene in Kyoto unfolded like a fevered dream of a military strategist with a sense of humor and a love for classical misdirection. As the Zarkari drones descended, they found the city empty, streets quiet, motionless mannequins dressed in school uniforms and business suits lined intersections. Billboard screens blinked nonsensical messages. We know you're watching. Humans can't be tamed. Ask any cat. Ever heard of guerrilla theater? Suddenly, holograms projected hundreds of identical Raina Vescas lookalikes across the skyline, all pointing in different directions. The Zarkari systems tried to lock onto a target, and failed. Then the ground opened. A barrage of non-lethal sonic pulses, distorted music, and aerosolized glitter stunned the invaders. Human forces surged from underground tunnels, armed with electrified nets, alien reverse-engineered plasma tools, and a wild collective determination. Zara's voice echoed across loudspeakers. Performance art could be lethal, you know. As the last drone was disabled, Raina stood atop a broken Zarkari crawler, breathing hard. All around her, humans laughed, shouted, and danced. Somewhere nearby, Joe had started a conga line. Raina's comm crackled. Miles' voice came through. Intercepted another council transmission. Want to hear it? Play it. A beat. Then a voice, deep, mechanical, and incredulous. They are not fighting to win. They are fighting to disrupt. They celebrate confusion. Another voice responded. They don't follow patterns. They generate anomalies. They're like a virus with rhythm. Later that night, Reina sat on a rooftop overlooking a still-burning Tokyo suburb. Beside her, Zara sipped tea brewed over a salvaged Zarkari heat core. "Do you think this'll end soon?" Zara asked. Reina stared at the stars. "I don't know, but we've shown them what we are. A mess," Zara said, smiling. "A miracle," Reina replied. "One they'll never understand." The Zarkari Dominion was not built to lose. Their war engines had subjugated civilizations across 7 spiral arms. Their neural algorithms had predicted every rebellion before it sparked, and their archivists had never recorded a species that resisted beyond a standard cycle. Until now, above Earth, the Zarkari command ship eminence of logic faltered in its orbit. Inside, tactical holograms flickered with static. Each new strategy fed to their combat AI. Flanking maneuvers, orbital bombardments, drone swarms returned a singular, blinking status. Incompatible. Input contradictory / response unpredictable. The high strategist, a being of translucent chitin and light-based thought, regarded the screen with growing horror. Earth wasn't just resisting. It was infecting. On the ground, Reina Vasquez stood before a fractured globe made of old monitor parts and satellite scraps. The war room had become a gallery of salvaged victories. Alien helmets turned into flower pots, enemy drones repurposed as delivery bots, an entire wall plastered with intercepted Zarkari propaganda, edited into internet memes. Reina circled the table. They're adapting. They've stopped sending ground forces. Their AI is closing off exposed functions. They're learning. Zara blew across the rim of her coffee mug. So we teach them something new. Joe grinned from a pile of equipment he'd turned into a nap nest, like a big, stupid lesson in pain. Miles tapped the display with a pen. What if we give them too much to learn? Flood their systems with contradiction. Reina raised an eyebrow. Explain. They rely on predictability. If we feed their AI so much conflicting data, cultural nonsense, paradoxes, absurdity, it could force recursive errors, burn their processors out from the inside. Zara snapped her fingers. A mimetic overload. Weaponized culture shock. Reina looked around the room. We'll need global participation. Artists, hackers, comedians, anyone who's ever broken the rules just to see what would happen. Joe sat up. This is going to be glorious. They called it Plan Z. Within hours, the call went out, not to militaries, but to every open mic poet, mad coder, theater kid, surrealist painter, and retired cryptographer on Earth. Submissions poured in from every continent. Videos of synchronized dance mobs to anime-themed songs in the middle of battlefields. AI-generated Shakespeare Rickroll mashups broadcast on every known Zarkari frequency. A Minecraft recreation of the Zarkari capital, but with googly eyes on every structure. The data avalanche began. Miles, coordinating with coders across the globe, weaved the feeds into a coherent virus. A language-breaking, format-defying loop of satire, sincerity, and soul. He loaded it into a Zarkari relay dish retrofitted into a barn in Saskatchewan. Reina gave the order. Broadcast. In orbit, the eminence of logic received the signal. And cracked. Command systems went silent. Navigation AI began narrating in Shakespearean English. Targeting arrays locked onto imaginary enemies. Emergency subroutines triggered nonsensical countermeasures, deploying atmospheric stabilizers in vacuum, initiating self-diagnostics in base 16 haiku. "What is a SpongeBob?" whispered a technician. The high strategist watched helplessly as the fleet AI tried to process its own existence through Earth's paradoxes and memes. In its final act of lucidity, the flagship opened all communication channels and emitted a single word in perfect English. Why? On Earth, Reina watched the results unfold in real time. Zarkari ships began withdrawing erratically, like confused predators swatting at their own shadows. Their formations broke apart, logic spiraling into chaos. But all was not victory yet. The retreating vessels had activated a failsafe, a planetary destabilization beacon, pulsing with destructive energy. Earth had a day before it collapsed the upper atmosphere into molten glass. Miles' voice broke the tension. "We can't jam it. but we can get to it." "Where?" Reyna asked. He pointed upward. "The transmission's anchored on the eminence. We hijack a ship and ride it up." Zara smiled slowly. "Performance art in space." Joe clapped. "I'll bring the fireworks." An old Zarkari cruiser, grounded weeks earlier and stored beneath a stadium in Johannesburg, was their ticket. Reyna, Miles, Zara, and Joe suited up, modified exo-rigs cobbled from scavenged parts and stubborn imagination. As they launched, the world watched. Every screen, every street, every soul silently hoping chaos might once again save them. The cruiser breached orbit just as the beacon pulsed again. A warning. Inside the eminence, disarray reigned. The four humans moved like myths, dancing between broken drones, slapping control panels into submission, dodging malfunctioning security systems that screamed snippets of SpongeBob in Latin. They reached the core. Reyna stepped forward. "Miles!" He handed her a device, small, glowing, humming with improbable power. "Patch this in. It'll overwrite their failsafe with something better." "What?" "A recording of Zara's street performance from week 1, with subtitles." Reyna plugged it in. The pulse stopped. Outside, the Zarkari fleet shimmered, then began folding in on itself, retreating, panicked, their pride shattered by a species they once deemed primitive. Earth was safe, but more than that, Earth had won. The Zarkari fleet vanished into the dark, scattered like frightened crows chased from a battlefield by a madman with a tambourine. For the first time in eons, their war records ended in an ellipsis rather than a victory. Earth was still standing, barely, in the charred husk of what had once been a luxury orbital warship. Reyna Vasquez lay back against a sparking console, breathing hard. Her suit hissed as the onboard oxygen compensated for fractured hull integrity. Beside her, Joe Callahan chewed an unlit cigar. "So," he said, grinning, "does this mean we get to throw the biggest victory party in human history?" Miles Chun was slumped over a gutted command interface, fingers still twitching in post-adrenaline spasms. "Technically, the ship's still on fire, Joe. And we're still in space," added Zara, who was painting a giant smiling Earth on the wall with coolant fluid and determination. "But sure, let's call it party." Reyna closed her eyes for a moment, letting silence settle in. Not the silence of defeat or fear, but that rarest of things in war, quiet satisfaction. Then she opened them and smiled faintly. "We should probably go home first." They returned to Earth on the debris hauler UGG. A name Miles insisted was an acronym no one should ever try to decipher. The hauler had been repurposed from Zarkari salvage in human defiance, now covered in graffiti, prayer flags, protest stickers, and exactly one pair of fuzzy dice. Their re-entry sparked cheers across the globe. Crowds flooded broken city streets, waving homemade banners, banging pots and pans, holding up signs that read, "We are still here. Take that, space jerks." I'm mean for this. But in the days that followed, as humanity tried to make sense of what they'd won, a question surfaced. Now what? The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. They'd watched the retreat in disbelief, watched the Zarkari pride unravel under Earth's cultural nonsense and unrepentant nonconformity, watched a race no one had considered significant punch far above its galactic weight class, while laughing. The Ellerin diplomat, a being of luminous ice, addressed the silence. The humans should be contained, studied. Their unpredictability threatens equilibrium. But Vrek of Tharn, who'd once laughed at Earth's primitive internet warfare, now watched a replay of Zara's glitterbomb monologue with strange reverence. "They are not chaos," Vrek said slowly. "They are possibility. They are potential." Another delegate spoke up. "They broke every rule, and then rewrote them," murmured the elder, voice like black hole static. "Invite them." Gasps filled the chamber. To the council? To the galaxy? Back on Earth, Reyna stood at the United Nations headquarters, most of which was now a tent village strung with solar tarps, satellite dishes, and a ramen stand. She looked tired, her uniform patched a dozen times, eyes ringed with exhaustion and victory. Reporters jostled. Drones hovered, Children held up toy versions of the team's makeshift weapons. When the cameras blinked red, she cleared her throat. "We didn't win because we were stronger," she said. "Or smarter. We won because we were human. We collaborated. We contradicted. We imagined." Behind her stood Zara in a cosmic pattern hoodie, Miles in a lab coat covered in signatures, and Joe in aviators, holding a rescued Zarkari kitten. Raina continued. "They came here thinking we were alone, scattered. But we showed them what humanity means. Not uniformity, but unity through difference. Strength through story. Power through play." Cheers erupted. Weeks passed. Earth rebuilt. But the world was changed forever. Former enemies worked side by side. Musicians and engineers designed new languages that sounded like both lullabies and launch codes. Art and science no longer lived in separate rooms. The team stayed together. Raina became Earth's first envoy to the Galactic Council. Miles headed a research institute dedicated to decoding alien tech via stand-up comedy. Zara launched a global arts initiative. Expression is resistance. And Joe, of course, started a cooking show called Space Snacks with Boombox, where he taught aliens to deep-fry things that probably shouldn't be deep-fried. And somewhere deep in the universe, a Zarkari commander stood before a group of young cadets and showed them footage from the war, the tactical failures, the cultural meltdowns, the memes. "This," the commander said, "is humanity." He paused the recording on a freeze frame of Raina's team, standing victorious amidst absurdity. "And if you ever think your enemy is weak, remember, they threw glitter at gods and lived."